Australian government has no appetite to see Google or Facebook leave the Australian market. But at the same time, we made it clear that if you do business in Australia, you need to comply with the law of the land. And of course, we have developed this code very carefully. The Senate committee process we're going through now is an opportunity for all parties, including Google, to put their views about any further changes to the drafting they'd like to see. I will consider that, but the Prime Minister did make it very clear to Google that we're proceeding to legislate as we have said we would do.
So from those conversations, it's basically safe to assume that you're reasonably confident that Google, or even Facebook for that matter, aren't necessarily looking to exit. You've actually mentioned over the weekend that you've already started using Bing and DuckDuckGo, for example, but in terms of the Australian public, should they perhaps be confident that we are going to see these tech organisations remain here in Australia, but they're just going to have to, like you mentioned, play by Australia's rules?
Well, we have seen from time to time over the last few years, big tech companies, typically US tech companies, make threats about leaving Australia if they weren't happy with our regulatory settings. As the Prime Minister's observed when he was the Treasurer and working on some changes to our GST arrangements, Amazon threatened to leave. They did cease services for a short period of time, but came back into the market quite quickly. Now, in the discussion last week, the Prime Minister, the Treasurer and I made it clear to Google that they're obviously an important part of the ecosystem here in Australia, as they are around the world. The ACCC's Digital Platforms Inquiry showed that over 19 million Australians use Google every month, over 17 million use Facebook. So we certainly, it's not our preference to see them leave. I think it's fair to say there was a good discussion on that issue. And what the Prime Minister very strongly encouraged Google to do was to focus on arriving at satisfactory commercial agreements with Australian news media businesses. The whole premise of this news media bargaining code is that our first preference is to see commercial deals struck between, on the one hand, a Google and on the other hand, a Seven West Media or an ABC or SBS or News Corp, whoever it might be. And our reasoning for having this legislative requirement with the backstop of an arbitration process is that in the absence of the market power issues, these commercial negotiations would happen in the ordinary course. But Google has 94% of the market for search in Australia. And when you have that extraordinary degree of market power, then perhaps you don't feel under the same ordinary commercial pressure to do deals with other market participants. And that's why we're coming in with this backstop of this legislative process where if a commercial deal is not done, then there is the power for this compulsory arbitration process to occur.